This is called the 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG Recap. Why I enjoy this one specifically is because 2013 is the year of the Dragon Rules in Spellbook, and this is actually the year that I played and went to the WCQ, or as any US watchers, it's called it's like Nationals for Australia and New Zealand. And I remember I was like X11 and missed Top Cup because the event organizers had to condense the tournament to try and fit it all in one day, just because they wanted to do Australian Nationals and WCQ all over a 3 day long weekend. And that really just frustrated me. So I took a break after that. But this is like the last year that I competed in like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And did like the whole Nationals world, try to get the World's Grind. So this is going to be a bit nostalgic for me, but yeah, I want to see this and like react to something I haven't seen for a long time. So let's go.
Exiting 2012, a shift in the meta that had been present for the past year was starting to creep in. Though a majority of the year had been dominated by the triangle format decks, Abyss Rising at the tail end of the year brought a new competitor to the table in Mermail, which appeared to be poised to challenge the long-standing champions of the metagame. This led us...
Yeah, so I guess if we didn't watch 2012, I'll just quickly give you a recap for anyone who didn't remember it. But so 2012 largely dominated by Insectors, Chaos Dragons with full power Fuchsia Fusion, and Dino Rabbits, which was like macro deck. And then Windups was like the like middle of that, whereas like it could beat all of them, but could also lose to all of them. And then later in the year with 2012, what happened is it was like a watered down version of all of them, those decks. Future Fusion got banned. Rabbit got semi-limits to both Tour Guide and Rabbit, making them a little bit less consistent. I believe Insectors had limitations to Insector Hornet and Dragonfly, so you had to play more Centipede control. And then the Wind-Ups, they had lost Hunters, so they could no longer do the hand loop. Instead, they had to do a Shock Lock combo with Shockmaster. That's just a real quick recap of 2012. And then those were decks largely dominated until the end of the year when Abyss Rising came out. We got Mermail, and then Mermail kind of like added like another cog to that piece, but wasn't like overall dominant.
Into the first set of the year, and if Abyss Rising gave us the water threat we've been needing, the next set would bring the fire to combat it.
Yeah. Oh, man, this is so disappointing. Oh no, this is Spellbooks.
Cosmo Blazer. Release date, January 25th, 2013. Set type, core set. Major strategies, Noble Knight, Fire Fist, Mermail. Impact, the fire to Mermail's water. Cosmo Blazer would...
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. I actually largely forgot about the fire deck because it didn't get support until it was like too late in the TCG.
Kick the year off with a core set focused on introducing a new fire archetype to the game to help combat the powerful Mermails introduced last set, while also bringing waves of support for previously introduced archetypes to help boost their playability into the metagame. The new archetype was Fire Fist, a series of fire beast warriors centered around their interactions with the Fire Formation series of continuous spells and traps. This first wave gave us Bear, who sets a Fire Formation spell from deck when he deals damage and can send a Fire Formation spell trap to grave to pop a monster on field. Gorilla, who sets a Fire Formation spell from deck when it destroys a monster in battle, able to send a Fire Formation spell trap to grave to pop a spell or trap. Dragon, who sets a Fire Formation trap from deck when a Fire Formation spell trap is activated, and can send 2 Fire Formation spell traps to grave to revive a Fire Fist. Tiger King, a Beast Warrior locked rank 4 that sets a Fire Formation spell trap from deck on summon, can detach to negate all non-Beast Warriors on field until the end of the turn, and when sent to grave can send 3 Fire Formation spell traps to grave to summon 2 lower level Beast Warriors with the same attack from deck. All of the Fire Formation spells and traps share an effect to boost Beast...
Man, it is crazy that Tenki was released over like 10 years ago. No, it's over 10 years ago. And it's still been a relevant card throughout the decade. That's crazy, man. How powerful a card is Tenki?
Beast Warriors attack.
In fact, I think Tenki has been limited, semi-limited, and just unlimited, and then limited, and then semi-limited or unlimited. It's been like, it's gone around so many times on the ban list, Tenki. It's insane.
By a value while face up, being 100 for spells and 300 for traps, with each having an additional effect, with Tenki searching a lower level Beast Warrior on activation, Tensu giving an additional normal of a Beast Warrior every turn, Tensen boosting a Beast Warrior by 700 that turn on activation, and Tenkin negating a Beast Warrior's effects but making it immune to cards other than itself on activation.
Tenkin was like a
We also
fringe
received a few more pieces in the OCG import slots, being Horse Prince, a level 6 synchro that summons a level 3 fire from deck.
But we never got the level 3 tuner until it was like way too late. And that was really sad.
On Synchro Summon, Lion Emperor, a fire-locked rank 3 that can detach one to recur a fire from grave to hand, and Spirit, a level 3 tuner that revives a level 3 200 or less defense fire on normal summon. Fire Fist gave a solid introduction.
No, I don't. Did we get... I thought Spirit came out later. Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Spirit. One moment. I thought this came out way later in the TCG. I don't think because we didn't ever get. Yes. I swear this card came out way later than like Cosmo Blazer 2013. No, it did. Huh. Then what is the card that I'm thinking of? Because there's something we didn't get until way later in the TCG that caused like the 3-axis Fire Fist deck to never really exist. I feel like it was Spirit. Was it always there? Give me one sec. Gotta pull this over the side. I swear it was something that was not in the TCG originally. Okay, I'll put this
wave here, but was clearly being pulled in two different directions, being a rank 4 focus deck between Bear, Gorilla, and Tiger King, and a level 3 strategy with Spirit, Lion Emperor, and Horse Prince. Though notably, even though there were other level 3 Fire Fists in the set, there were currently no in-archetype monsters that Spirit could revive other than another copy of itself. Because of the split in focus, two different versions of Fire Fist would be created, known as 3-axis and 4-axis, named for which level that version focused on, with 4-axis being the only playable version at this stage, heavily relying on Bear to do the heavy lifting of the deck as clearly the best main deck piece. In addition to this, Tenki would move to see play outside of Fire Fist as well due to effectively being a Beast Warrior Rhoda, filling a niche no other card really had filled at that stage, and would continue to see play in any Beast Warrior focused deck for a long period of time after. Moving into archetypes that received new support, Noble Knight is the first TCG exclusive archetype that has technically been around for some time at this stage, seeing roughly 1 to 2 cards per core set release since Galactic Overlord. However, most of their cards seemed completely disjointed from each other thus far. This set would introduce their first decent wave of support to give the strategy an actual direction to move in. So let's talk about it. Noble Knight Madrat is a level 4 light warrior that becomes a level 5 dark warrior while equipped with a Noble Arm spell, and can, if equipped, summon a Noble Knight from deck and pop its equipped spell, which triggers the float effect of the 500. Equip its Noble Knight locked rank 4 that spell are from direct Abyssdine, able to summon her stage. Mermail would also see a solid second wave of support here in Abyssdine, able to summon herself if searched while you control a Mermail, able to revive a level 3 or lower Mermail if summoned by a Mermail effect. Abyss Lead, able to summon itself from hand by discarding 3 other waters, able to recur an Abyss spell trap engraved to hand on summon, and can rip a card from the opponent's hand by tributing another Mermail. Abyss Trite, a 3-material rank 3 that can detach to change an effect target to itself and revive a Mermail on destruction, and Abyssteus, a TCG exclusive that can summon itself by discarding another water and searches a Mermail.
Abyssteus is the reason that Billy Brake made something called mono Mermails, where he did not play like all of the other like Atlantean or like the Diva stuff. I think he used a few of them, but he was largely just trying to use like mono Mermail with like Abyssteus control, play the Dragoon, search out the Abyss Megalo, and then what you would do is you'd be able to use like the thing that negates spells. You'd be able to make little 7s. Dracossack. No, Dracossack wasn't out yet. It would Abyss Gaius. That's right. But yeah, this card was insane for as a TCG exclusive. Just something that was like, it made Mermail's like top tier meta for like 2 months.
When summoned this way. This wave would fill the in-archetype void in terms of swarming, especially for level 3 and 7s with Dyne and Tias specifically, with Tias being an absolutely insane piece of support to boost the deck up further into the meta with both its easier summon than Megalo and its search on summon. In addition to this, Trike gives the archetype a good target to summon using Bahamut Shark, which was always an option for the deck to make but lacked a solid target to summon. This support would make Mermail even more of a threat in the metagame than it already was, which we'll see soon enough. Prophecy would receive a couple of new pieces, with the most notable being Master, able to copy the effect of a normal spellbook engrave as long as you control at least one spellcaster on the field and can reveal another spellbook in hand, allowing the chain that began with Blue Boy and Secrets to continue further, allowing spellbook decks to get additional counters onto Starhall and additional names into the grave for Fate. Diamond Dire Wolf is a new rank 4 staple piece that can pop a tri-type you control and a card the opponent controls, able to pop itself with this effect, becoming the go-to rank 4 removal option. Lightning Chidori is a wind-locked rank 4 that spins a set card to the bottom of the deck on summon, and can detach to stack a face-up card on top of the deck, an insanely powerful option for wind decks, though there were none in the meta at the time. Crimson Blader is a level 8 OCG import synchro that, if it destroys a monster in battle, locks the summoning of high-level monsters from the opponent the following turn, which while not useful on release would become extremely relevant within the next few months. Breakthrough Skill is a trap that negates the effects of a face-up monster that turn, then can be banished from grave on your turn, except the turn it's put there, to do it again, becoming a solid option for multiple monster effect stuns. All in all...
Was Breakthrough Skill one of the original cards that had a banish this card in the graveyard to apply an effect? Because I'm trying to think what was before Breakthrough Skill. It's so common now with like Big Welcome Labyrinth in like in modern Yu-Gi-Oh today, or like the Wanted engine in modern Yu-Gi-Oh today. But what was like before Breakthrough Skill? 2013. 2012 didn't really have anything like that. 2011, no, we weren't doing anything like that in 2011. You know, I think that might be the original banish from the grave.
Cosmo Blazer, while not being a meta upheaval set, did many things right in pushing the meta slightly in a new direction, complemented by the structure deck release that came 2 weeks later.
Oh, is this the Fire King structure, the original one? Oh, yeah.
Onslaught of the Fire Kings.
Oh,
Release date, February 8th, 2013. Set type, structure deck. Major strategies, Fire King. Impact, another fire archetype, not nearly as relevant. Onslaught of the Fire Kings was the fire structure deck counterpart to last year's Atlantean water structure deck, and as such it introduced the Fire King archetype, a series of tri-typed fire monsters who were designed to be spiritual successors to...
I remember on release, we tried so hard to make this deck playable, but it was just so bad. Like the card just did so little, and then like the best thing you could try to come up with was like just like using the Avatar Garunix here to like nuke the board during the standby phase, but it was just never good. And we tried to use like Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys to like clear the back row decks, but again, it was just overall, it was just like, it was so slow, it took so much setup, and then if your opponent set up like a Dolka or a Lagia, sorry, Dolka specifically, would just like be very irrelevant. And then again, it was just not good enough versus the Mermail deck. Ugh.
The Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys from the DM era, with their boss monster, High Avatar Garunix, having an almost identical effect, reviving itself the turn after it's destroyed by card effect, nuking all monsters on the field when it did. In addition to him, Barong could search for a Fire King card the turn after it's destroyed by a card effect. Onslaught of the Fire King lets you, if you control no monsters and the opponent does, summon a fire tri-type from deck, destroying it in the end phase, and Circle lets you pop a fire on field to revive a fire in grave, giving you easy access to Garunix as well as the original Nephthys with most of the enabling support. Unfortunately, the deck as it stood, while explosive, was extremely telegraphed and delayed in its impact, relegating the strategy to simply a rogue option for the time being. Reprints here included Sacred Phoenix of Nephthys, Manticore of Darkness, Rekindling, and Pot of Duality, with the Duality reprint being a solid inclusion for deck sales. YCS Miami would be held the next weekend, and Windup would once again reclaim...
Yeah. It's like the format here didn't really shift too dramatically because, again, we're still... was Shocklock still viable here? Let me just quickly check that. Um, Miami. So this is February 17th. 17th format. But yeah, this is like where Billy breaks mono mermails. Like, was it top 3 in this format? I think. Dino Rabbit was still playing Macro Rabbit because Macro Rabbit would be very good versus the Mermail deck because they specifically have to go to Grave. Let's see. So what are we looking for? What are you looking for? 2013, around February. Oh no, we were still on the No, Shockmaster was still legal here. Yeah, so
Claim its spot as top deck in the meta.
So yeah, at this point in time, we were still on the March to September ban list ratio cycle where there was never a ban list between there, or e-bans were like not a thing. So it was still just like every March 1st, new ban list. Every September 1st, ban list. And that's like our rotation. It was none of this nuanced crap of like no sooner than. It was just like March 1st every year, September 1st every year. So we all knew when it was coming.
Including first place piloted by Travis Smith. Merlantian was right behind it though in representation, with a few players notably cutting Genex Undyne from the list due to finally hitting that key point of enough good mermail names to no longer need it, although a couple would still play it. Firefist would see its first top cut appearance here, notably playing Rescue Rabbit to access Vorse Raider.
Vorse Raider, yeah. You know what? It was crazy about this is that Gene Warped Werewolf was also Gene Warped Werewolf was like also a thing that came up eventually where you'd get, because it's a Beast Warrior and so is Vorse Raider, I believe. Vorse Raider is also a Beast Rider. Yeah. I think people played Gene Warped Werewolf just because it was a normal summon with 2,000 attack, so you could use it to like attack over a normal summon Thunder King.
For the Tiger King push, which would be iterated on in the coming weeks to instead be Gene Warped Werewolf, the strongest Beast Warrior normal monster.
Yeah, that's why
YCS Bokum would be held a week later, and while Windup would once again take the King slice, as well as the top spot piloted by Alpay Ingene, Firefist's popularity in the EU was a completely different story from its original performance stateside, with 3 different variants popping up, being the Rabbit variant we saw last week, a stun variant playing Beast King Barbaros, who could be boosted with the fire formations, and even a Fire King variant, utilizing the Fire King spell traps to access Bear, Gorilla, and even Flamvell Fire Dog. YCS Santiago would be held the same weekend, and if the US was leaning Mermail and the EU was leaning Firefist, then South America was clearly leaning towards Macro Rabbit, being the most popular deck of the event, taking first place piloted by Jose Raul.
Oh. Wow, I don't ever remember seeing anyone use Night Beam in these. Doug Zeef reference.
Macrocosmos tended to have a significantly positive matchup with the various decks in the format, due to most being reliant on the graveyard to set up either their main play lines or heavier recursion pieces, giving Macro Rabbit a good field to play against for this event specifically. Following the opening YCSs of the year, the ban list would be updated on March 1st, bringing a fairly small number of changes, but without question being impactful ones. Newly banned were Sangan, a targeted hit at both its generic searchability as well as tour guide, and Windup Carriers and Mighty, effectively crushing the best extra deck monster in archetype for windups, but the hits would keep coming. Newly limited were Windup Magician, killing the board flooding of the deck as now you needed more gas than ever to access Shockmaster, One Day of Peace, heavily crippling the extension of alt WinCon decks, and Solemn Warning, a staple piece of the Solemn Brigade as it was referred to, now matching its counterpart of Judgment. Newly semi-limited were Ryo, nerfing stun strategies fairly hard, Tsukiyomi, bringing back the GOAT format staple, and Advanced Ritual Art, as the Demise OTK was effectively gone for good now. Lastly, Unlimited were Kalute, Lumina, Mind Crush, Spore, and Sheen Smoke Signal, all cards for decks of previous metagames that were, in fairness, mid for the current space.
It's so crazy.
This particular ban list target was clearly Windup, and the 2 targeted hits at the deck landed powerfully, taking the meta powerhouse almost completely out of the scene, though would still see some play as a rogue to tier 3 strategy. At this time, we also received a couple of side releases that would mostly do nothing to the metagame, starting with Star Pack 2013 on March 1st, which changed nothing at all, followed by Zexal Collection 10 on March 8th, which did bring 2 new useful exceeds to the meta and Starliege Paladynamo, a new rank 4 option for light strategies, and number 61 Volcasaurus, a new staple in the rank 5.
Finally. So Volcasaurus has been out for so long, like an eternity, but it was like only a jump promo for like the longest time, so like the worldwide access So the worldwide game didn't have access to it. I
slot.
think it was
The
like
first
only
testing grounds
NA.
of this new metaspace would be YCS Austin on March 23rd, and with Windup almost completely gone, taking only one spot in the top cut
Water
here,
dominance.
Mermail was left to completely dominate the space,
Man, that
taking
was such a fun
15
deck,
of the
Mermail.
top 32, in addition to first place piloted by Oscar Zelaya, showcasing the current version of the deck, which had completely eliminated the Gen X package. Yugioh would begin to see some movement here with Windup out of the picture, still utilizing
like
Machina for instant threats of Fortress, or the Karakuris for access to Synchro 7 and 8 pools. Probably the most interesting deck taking a spot here was the Electrum OTK, a newer OTK development that required just 2 cards to pull.
Wait a second. Electrum OTK or FTK? What was it now? Yeah, no, this is the Electrum FTK. So, for those of you who don't know how it works, you'd go Fusion Gate, which would allow you to essentially use monsters from hand, field, or graveyard as fusion materials and banish them. And then you'd flip Chain Material face up, and Chain Material would allow you to use fusion materials from your deck. So what would happen is you'd make 2/8s. If I remember correctly, you'd fusion for 2/8s, and then what would happen is you'd overlay them for Gustav Max. Then you'd burn 2,000 for Gustav Max, and then you'd make Electrum, which would shuffle back. No, you'd make is it Gaia or something to put the Gustav Max back in the deck? Give me one sec. Yeah, because this is the Electrum FTK. Your Electrum FTK. Let's see if there's a video on it. Fusion Gate. I just want to make sure I get it. Okay. Okay, so this is probably really old, but let's see. This is 9 years ago. Okay, this is it. Okay, so we'll go here and show you guys. Okay. So this is the Electrum FTK for anyone who's interested in seeing it. So yeah. So what you do is... Okay, great. So you'd chain material here. So you'd activate Fusion Gate. You'd flip Decree. Okay, and great. Okay, so now at this point in time, you now are able to fusion someone using the monsters in the deck. So you'd banish 4 for Electrum, right? For Electrum, shuffle them all back. Banish 4 for Electrum, and shuffle them all back. Then you get rid of those 2. Put up another 8. Oh no, 10. I don't think you needed this card. Is it doing the burn loop? Is this the burn loop? No, wait, you didn't do the burn loop. No, that wasn't the... No, this wasn't it. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. Fusion Gate, Chain Material, FEK. Okay. Let me see if this is it then. Fusion Gate, Chain Material, FTK. I gotta find... It's like a super old one here. No, you... Fusion Gate... sorry. Fusion Gate, Chain Material, FTK. Because there's an FTK loop you can do, or OTK loop. Where is it? It's so long ago now. Okay, whatever. I can't find it, so get back to here.
Off. being Fusion Gate and Chain Material. By using Chain Material, you can fuse using materials in the deck and grave for the entire turn by banishing them, which meshes well with Fusion Gate, allowing you to fuse as many times as you want in a turn, allowing you to fuse for Elemental Hero Electrum, who shuffles all banished monsters into deck on Fusion Summon, allowing you to make a second.
That's right. So yeah, it was all banished monsters go back into the deck. So that's right. You would use it, and then what you'd do is you'd shuffle back the Gustav Max because you'd use it with Gaia. Gotcha. That's how it worked. That's how it worked.
Shuffle again, overlay the 2 for Gustav Max, burn for 2000, fuse the Gustav in the graved Electrum for Gaia, the Gaia in the second Electrum for Shining, and then make a third Electrum to shuffle back all the materials to do it again, burning for game after 4 loops. YCS San Diego would be 2 weeks later on April 6th, though a disclosure needs to be made about the top cut breakdown here. Prior to top 32, players played using a Battle Pack Epic Dawn sealed draft deck, meaning that just because a deck...
Oh, this was the really bad YCS. This was like the one where in the Swiss rounds you had to use like the draft format, and then, oh god, and then the final top cut would play the real decks. I don't like this whatsoever. That's why
deck is in the top cut here doesn't mean that the deck made it through by its own merit. Angel Asensio would take the event on Mermail, as to be expected due to the deck's popularity and power in the current format. Last event from this block was YCS San Jose 2 weeks later, and from the top 16, we'd see Firefist taking a split of the representation from Mermail, with Bear Control builds taking center stage, using the remainder of the Firefist pieces to effectively get yourself to Bear. Jorge Valverde would take the event on Bubble Beat, showcasing the deck's ability to continue topping despite its hits from late 2012 by accessing bursts of power through Blade Armor Ninja and Absolute Zero. This would lead into the next Hidden Arsenal set release, and although the last couple had been quite underwhelming in the grand scheme, this one was set to upend all preconceived notions of failure.
Oh, Emerald! Oh wait, this is... Wait a second, Emerald and Chain are in this side. Oh, that's...
Hidden Arsenal 7, Night of the Stars.
This was ridiculous.
Release date, April 26th, 2013. Set type, deck building set. Major strategies, Constellar, Evil Swarm, extra deck staples. Impact, an upheaval of the rank 4 pool. Hidden Arsenal 7 would be the final standalone Hidden Arsenal set for a long period of time, and the series was not about to just sit back and die quietly. It was set to go out with a massive bang by not only introducing 2 new strategies to the meta, but also by completely revolutionizing the generic Exceed pool by giving most archetypes from the last couple of sets a generic Exceed that did something uniquely powerful.
I think I've actually still got my Evil Swarm cards from the Hidden Arsenal 7 booster box. Just give me 1 sec. Yeah, so I'll try to hold them up to the camera, but yeah. Hidden Arsenal Chapter 7. It's like all of... Yeah, so... Oh, there we go. So all of these cards here, Hidden Arsenal Chapter 7 cards, this is from my booster box from 2013. I can't believe it. I still have all of these on hand. That's insane, man. Yeah, that's crazy. Sleeves are a little bit dirty, but yeah, I probably definitely have to wash my hands now, but I should definitely wash my hands actually after touching these things. But yeah, 10 years ago, had them in their sleeves.
Starting with Gem Knights, they wouldn't receive an Exceed like most of the others, but would receive a couple of new key cards for later impact, like Lazuli, who adds a normal monster from grave to hand when sent to grave, Seraphinite, a fusion of a Gem Knight and a light monster that can provide an extra normal summon each turn, and Master Diamond, a fusion of 3 Gem Knights that can banish a level 7 or lower Gem Knight fusion from grave to copy its name and effect that turn. Each of these would find important slots in Gem Knight strategies in the future, with Lazuli and Master Diamond becoming backbones of a Gem Knight OTK with the release in 2014, and Seraphonite finding a completely unexpected home in 2015, which we'll cover both when we get there. Laval would see a singular new relevant card, being Lavalval Chain, a rank 4 that could detach to either bin a card from deck or stack a monster on top of the deck. Without exaggeration or hyperbole, this is to this day considered one of the strongest Exceeds ever printed, as it would do so.
Is it still... Wait, hold on a second. Is Lavalval Chain still banned? Is Chain still banned? Yes, it's still banned. That is crazy, man. I guess that's probably for the best, because if this card was unbanned, it would be insane.
So much for so many strategies simply by being a Foolish Burial on
Foolish Burial and stacks.
legs.
Yeah, with all the draw power in today's, like... Could you imagine using this with the Sinful Spoils engine? Make this, stack something to the top of your deck, like, I don't know, Ash Blossom, Veiler, Droll, any hand trap you want, and then use the Sinful Spoil cards to put something to the bottom and draw one card on top. That sounds broken.
Would spark a complete revitalization of a certain strategy within the next few weeks. Gishki would be one of the strategies here that got a bit of the short end of the stick, but would receive one new boss monster, being Zealgigus, a level 10 ritual that could pay 1,000 life to draw a card, then shuffle a card on field into deck if it was a Gishki monster. Zealgigus was yet another loop enabler for the deck, this time by being a draw tool that happened to be level 10, meaning it gave the deck access to Gustav Max, and stop me if you've heard this one before. Ironically though, this would not be the best card released for Gishki in this set, but we'll get there soon enough. Gusto would similarly receive a new Exceed tool, that being Gusto Emerald, a rank 4 that could detach to shuffle 3 monsters engraved back into deck and draw 1, being effectively a mini Pot of Avarice on legs, seeing play for that reason initially, but in later formats being an enabler for some of the most degenerate loops in the game's history. Constellar would be the first of the 2 new archetypes here, overtaking Vylon's light attribute slot, being a series of differently leveled light monsters aimed at using level modulation to access their various extra deck bosses.
It's so sad.
These included Algady, who specials a Constellar from hand on normal, Pollux, who gives you an extra normal for a Constellar the turn it's normal summoned, Kaus, who could level modulate a Constellar by 1 twice per turn, Pleiades, a light locked rank 5 that could detach to bounce a card on a quick effect once per turn, and Ptolemy M7, a rank 6 that could be overlaid onto a Constellar Exceed, locking its other effect that turn could do, and could detach 1 to bounce a monster from field or grave to hand once per turn. This strategy would, on release, see no play, as the primary issue it faced was consistency, as every monster that searched in Archetype was not a level 4, locking what plays you could do on the turn they're used. That isn't to say the deck would be locked in an unplayable camp forever, as some experimentation would be done with the deck regularly to attempt a Pleiades turbo strategy in addition to Ptolemy M7 entering the staple rank 6 pool immediately, helping many decks like Heradic, but also enabling loops with Gishki thanks to being makeable with Mind August and Gus Kraken, which is part of the reason Gus Kraken was limited so far in advance.
Would have been good.
The other new archetype here was Evil
another
Swarm,
time.
the dark replacement for Steel Swarms, although more notably could be considered an upgraded version due to most of their support specifying L-Swarm monsters, meaning that they work with both Evil Swarm and Steel Swarm strategies, though were clearly built for this one. This initial wave included Heliotrope, a normal level 4 for rabbit shenanigans, O-Lantern, who could tribute itself to pop a face-up monster, Mandragora, who could special itself if your opponent controls more monsters, Castor, who gives an additional normal the turn it's normal, Thunderbird, who can banish itself when an effect is used and return itself in the next standby phase, their rank 4's Nightmare, who can detach to flip a monster that gets special summoned face down, Bahamut, who can detach and discard an L-Swarm to steal an opponent's monster, Ophion, who locks level 5 and higher special summons while it has materials and can detach to search an infestation spell trap, or a Boros, a 3-mat that can detach to activate one of its effects, but only once each while on the field, being bouncing an opponent's card, hand-ripping one, or banishing a card from the opponent's grave, Infestation Pandemic, a quick play spell that makes Evil Swarms immune to spell traps that turn, and Infection, which trades an L-Swarm in hand or on field for another one in deck. There's probably one specific Exceed I mentioned there that stood out compared to the rest. And yes, Ophion Control became the name of the game for Evil Swarm strategies, matching up incredibly well into Mermail by locking them out of their level 7 Swarmers, but still being a bit of a bad matchup into the rest of the meta spread for now. YCS Lyle would be held the same weekend, and notably the new Hidden Arsenal set seemed to make zero impact on the scene, with Mermails continuing to dominate the meta, taking first place here piloted by Long Dao,
Oh wait,
incorporating
this
the
was
Gen
like
X
the
package back.
this was the 53 card deck. I remember this. This was insane. The 53 card deck. Oh my god.
However, the set would see an impact on YCS Meadowlands 2 weeks later on May 12th, and this particular event is regularly
really?
revisited in retroplay due to its shocking diversity following Hidden Arsenal 7's.
I mean, at this point, it didn't really change a whole lot. I mean, I feel like you're saying it's diverse. It's a diverse format, but it's still like 50% dominated by the water decks. There's almost like nothing that's really matters about it. It's like there's still one wind up there that's playing without like the magician with they're playing without like magicians and sharks. They need to like sorry not carrier. They're relying heavily on that one magician and then like that tour guide which now no longer can get you to Sangan, so you have to play it by itself. It's just yeah.
Release, with a couple of new decks popping up from these pieces. The first, and most obvious, was Evil Swarm, sporting a Rescue Rabbit package here to access Ophion quickly and reliably, sporting a whole suite of back row to play Defend the Castle once
Dark
summoned,
Illusion,
including
cool.
one of the first big appearances of Safe Zone in the metagame, a choice that would grow more popular later in the year with the release of another Exceed to help Evil Swarm's game plan. The other big shakeup was later in the year with the release
Safe Zone. I don't see Safe Zone anywhere in this deck list. I see Forbidden Rest, and I see Overwork.
Of another Exceed to help Evil Swarm's game plan. The other big shakeup was the first appearance of Exceed Infernity, using rank 4 swarming enablers like Summoner Monk and Stygian Street Patrol to get you to the Lavalval chain quickly, who in turn set up your grave for your singular copy of Launcher to do as much work as it possibly could, or to stack Archchain on top of the deck for its own summon effect to trigger. Tyree Tinsley would take the event on Mermail, once again showing the
Man, Tyrie's been around forever.
Consistent power of the meta threat, back to cutting the Gen X package out. Unfortunately to many players, Meadowlands format is also known as the end of early Zexal, as many decks that were viable here, the great diversity that had been cultivated, and the vibe that almost any strategy could compete was about to be completely shattered, as the player base braced itself for what we've known was coming for months. We were about to enter the Dragon's Den.
Enter the Dragon's Den. Attack. Galactic Overlord. Was it Galactic Overlord?
Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy. Release date, May 17th, 2013. Set type, core set. Major strategies, Dragon Ruler, Spellbook, Mecha Phantom Beast. Impact, the meta capsizes.
You know what's crazy about this set? This was how you do a draft format like with the sneak peeks. Like the Dragon Rulers were low enough rarity where everyone was able to get them in 5 packs. Like you were able to get Dragon Rulers, and they were generic enough to be played. But the stuff at like the high rarity was more like specific, so you couldn't necessarily use it as a generic. That was like really cool right there. Just this whole set was just
Let's be
insane.
completely fair on this one. Anyone who knows any bit of the history of this game knows that this particular set would be the first of a couple major turning points in the game's history. Starting here and moving into the next few.
I just realized how long we've been going for on this and like how long we've got left. We've got like 40 minutes left and we've already been going for 40, so I'm going to speed it up a
Yugioh was a
bit.
game which shift from the core concepts of the early years into what we really know now as the modern version of the game, and it all started with the release of the Dragon Rulers. The Dragon Rulers are a series of level 7 dragons, one of each elemental attribute, being Redox for Earth, Tidal for Water, Blaster for Fire, and Tempest for Wind, each sharing the same 3 abilities. Able to summon themselves from hand or grave by banishing 2 monsters that are either dragons or their attribute from hand or grave, able to search a dragon of their attribute when banished, and each having a unique ability that activates by discarding themselves with another monster of their attribute, with Redox reviving a monster, Tidal dumping a monster from deck, Blaster popping a card on field, and Tempest searching for any dragon, with each only being able to use one of these effects a turn. In addition, they each had a baby counterpart that could be discarded alongside any monster that's either a dragon or shares its attribute to summon its corresponding dragon ruler from deck. These cards would completely upend the established metagame, taking over and dominating the game for the remainder of the year, and with many considering the impending format of Dragon Ruler format to be one of the most skill-intensive formats of all time, which we'll go more in depth on with the next major tournament. In the meantime though, an extremely notable point for the deck here was that the Dragon Ruler cards themselves maxed out at the rare rarity slot, making the entire archetype shockingly cheap for the time. However, because of this, the entire value of the deck, in turn, quickly pumped into the rank 7 extra deck pool, with the previously released Big Eye spiking immediately on reveal that these would be low rarity. A similar fate would befall the Mecha Phantom Beast cards released here, an archetype of monsters focused around summoning and utilizing their archetypal tokens.
$200 Draco sack. The rulers were like a couple bucks each, like $5 each or something at the rare slot, And then Draco Sack was 200, and you needed 2 to 3 of them.
Wolf being a level 4 that summons a token and adds the level of all tokens onto itself, making itself a level 7 on summon, and their rank 7 exceed Draco Sack, who can detach a material to summon 2 tokens and contribute Mecha Phantom Beast cards to pop a card on field once per turn. Unable to be destroyed by battle or card effect while you control a token, Draco Sack would instantly hit the $100 plus club, being one of the best extra deck monsters to summon using the Dragon Rulers, who also formed an interesting dynamic with Big Eye specifically, forming a mind game between players in the mirror match, while Tether Wolf would be a normal summon tech for some builds. Able to access Draco Sack with a token already on field for protection, Fire Fist would receive Leopard, a level 3 200 defense monster that could tribute itself to set a fire formation from deck, notable for both being summonable with Rekindling and Spirit, beginning the waves of support for the theorized 3-axis deck.
At this point in time, if you're not doing Dragon Rulers or Spellbooks, it did not matter. Like, it was Dragon Rulers, Spellbooks, and then the Evil Swarm players, like, deciding, hey, like, we have the only meta to... No. It didn't matter. It just did not matter at all.
Harpy would be the next major DM era archetype to receive the legacy support treatment, seeing Channeler,
right.
who can discard a Harpy card to summon another Harpy
it's
from
so
deck, becoming a level 7 if you controlled a dragon, and Hysteric Sign, which searched Elegant Egotist on activation and searched for up to 3 different Harpies in the end phase of the turn it's put in grave. Both of these would be insanely strong pieces to make Harpy a viable rank 4 and 7 strategy, especially with the previously released Lightning Chidori, but unfortunately was competing with the strongest rank 7 strategy ever in the same set, as well as the already meta one. Speaking of, Mermail would receive Abyss Oshia, able to trade a Mermail on field for any number in deck whose total level equals that monster's, and Abyss Scale of the Mizuchi, providing a spell negation on resolution of activation, both being powerful tools for Mermail to adapt with. Madolche would receive Hootcake, a level 3 beast that could special summon a Madolche from deck by banishing a monster in grave, specifically useful for summoning Messengelato from deck to trigger its search effect with a Madolche beast already being on board. King of the Feral Imps is a rank 4 that searches for any reptile monster, becoming a staple part of various extra decks over the next few years by being able to grab a random reptile extender for strategies. Sacred Sword of 7 stars can banish a level 7 in hand to draw 2, being a draw tool that felt almost tailor-made for Dragon Rulers to use and abuse. Geargia Gear is a trap that could summon 2 Geargiano monsters from deck, boosting their levels by 1, giving you instant access to the rank 4.
This card was going to be really good in like 2014, but just because of the Dragon Rulers, like, it was just hard to make anything else have an impact.
Or Exceed Pool, while also increasing the playability of the previously overlooked level 3 Geargias. Mind Drain was the third of the Drain continuous traps.
Oh, I remember this card. Spellbook players were playing this card and to beat the Dragon Ruler matchup, and it didn't
Able
matter.
to prevent effects in hand from activating, blocking hand traps and some summon effects. Totem Bird was a TCG exclusive wind locked rank 3, able to negate a spell trap by detaching 2, seeing some play in later rank 3 win strategies. Noble Arms of Destiny is yet another solid Noble Arms spell, giving its monster protection from destruction once per turn, slotting into the Noble Knight strategy instantly. Constellar and Evil Swarm would see their OCG imports here in Sombre and Kerkion, who had the same effect just for their respective archetypes, able to banish an archetypal monster in grave to add another to hand, then providing an additional normal summon that turn for their archetype. Of the two, Kerkion would see the immediate success thanks to Evil Swarm already being a popular option in the meta, giving another tool to turbo into Ophion. Though Constellar would also receive Omega, a light locked rank 4 that can detach to make Constellars immune to spells and traps that turn, becoming a solid rank 4 option for light decks in general. Lastly, and by far the most important card outside of the Dragon Rulers themselves, Spellbook of Judgment could, at the end of the turn you activate it, search for different spellbooks for each spell you've activated after its resolution, and summon a spellcaster monster whose level is equal to or lower than the number you added. This was one of the biggest resource plussing cards ever printed, able to reliably reach 3+ spellbooks off of its.
This was a goddamn custom card. It was so ridiculous that people thought it was fake when we first saw this. It's just insane. Like, the amount of advantage this card gave you, it's like we'd seen nothing like it. Like, I know by like modern standards, this card, it's crazy to say by modern standards this card is like mid. And back in like, but think about it like this: we had never seen a single card that could be like +6
activation and summon a powerful spellcaster afterward, commonly reaching either Jowgen to lock special summons or Kaiku to lock banishing from the grave against Dragon Rulers. This one card would push spellbooks from their previously tier 3 level status through the go-to deck that wasn't named Dragon Rulers, which we'll discuss more about soon enough. Following Tachyon,
this was like so insane to think about in this format, but we essentially had 2 decks that if the other counterpart did not exist at the same time, it would have been a tier 0 format for either of them.
There would be a couple of much smaller releases, starting with Super Starter V for Victory almost a month later, being the year starter deck and containing no new cards worth talking about. The second would be the second battle pack, War of the Giants, 2 weeks after the starter decks, which was mostly notable for shifting what set was played for sealed events moving forward, but also for having a couple of interesting reprints, such as Card D, Mermail Abyss Megalo, Pot of Duality, and Breakthrough Skill. The WC circuit for the year would be shortly after this release, starting with the European WCQ on June 29th, and although we do not have a full picture of the top cut like we would like, there was a clear winner for the new top deck of the format. Dragon Ruler had taken over.
Yeah, we probably didn't have that all the information available. Records from that time are a bit sketchy, but yeah, it was essentially all Dragon Rulers.
with most builds already centralizing around a few specific cards. The first point was the ratios of the rulers to babies was already fairly set, seeing 3 of each ruler and 2 of each baby across multiple lists. The second was the inclusion of Super Rejuvenation at its maximum 3 copies commonly, as by discarding with the baby effects, you would receive 2 draws at the end of the turn with Rejuvenation, or 4 if you use 2 baby effects that turn, which in turn could get you to another Rejuvenation, which as a quick play spell could be activated in the end phase after drawing it to draw even more. The third was Gold Sarcophagus, which was being played at 2 to 3 copies, able to banish a ruler from the deck to trigger its search effect for a baby, which in turn got you to the main ruler regardless, and the inclusion of level 1 tuners like Effect Feeler and Dragunity Corseska to access the level 8 Synchro pool, specifically Crimson Blader, who locked up the mirror match itself quite effectively. Fourth, and probably most telling for the future of the game, was a specific card that
Here's the thing. Crimson Blader was really good against the poorer Dragon Ruler players, but like this is one of the reasons, like this card was like one of the reasons people started cutting down from like 1 lightning to from 2 lightnings to 1, because you wanted to always start with burner or redox. So you either want to put burner or pebbles on the field, like to special summon out redox or blaster first, because if you special summoned one of those, it got hit by max C, you could either leave redox in defense, which was too big for Blader at 28 versus 3k, or blaster would be on the field at 28, and Blader has to stay on the field to to trigger the effect. At least that's what I think the ruling was, where it would not trigger if you destroyed blaster.
found its way into a few side decks here, being Vanity's Emptiness. The trap from Shining
Oh, that's right. This is the format that made Emptiness a card.
Darkness was finally being recognized for the power it represented, allowing you to set up your board.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember. Like, literally, like, no one had access to this card at, like, the Oceanic WCQ outside of, like, a very few amounts of people. So the people that did play this card had, like, so much free advantage. It was kind of scary.
With the rulers, then flip this on your opponent's turn to block them from doing the same. This was extra effective in the mirror match at this point.
I think I was able to scramble and find like 2 copies of this. I wanted the third but couldn't find it.
As few players played back row removal in the deck outside of the singular heavy storm, meaning to out it, commonly one would need blaster and another fire to do the job. However, very notably, Dragon Ruler would not take the event overall, with that honor going to Chris Bodolaudis on Spellbook, playing a large suite of 26 spells to chain activations after Judgment to activate the various tools to counter Dragon.
I don't remember this. Oh, that's right. Retort was here, but Retort was specifically for the mirror match.
Ruler's dominance in the format, with both Jowgen and Kaiku locking different aspects of the deck. Jowgen specifically would be a really interesting piece here, as its 1300 defense body actually proved to be rather difficult to out for Dragon Rulers, as the only normal summon in the deck that could do it natively was Stream, being 1600 attack, meaning that outside of that, the only reliable card to out it was similarly the Blaster Pop. Evil Swarm would also perform quite well here for 2 major reasons. The first, and most obvious, was Ophion locking the Dragon Ruler summons in addition to the summon of High Priestess from the Spellbook matchup.
It was actually just a terrible card. It was so easily outable.
Being outable by a few specific cards thanks to Infestation Pandemic providing protection, which was searchable by Ophion. The second, and less obvious to the naked eye, was the price point. With the entire deck being effectively found in Hidden Arsenal 7.
Yeah, that's right. The only reason this deck was relevant is because it was like a really good budget option. And honestly, when you've got the $1,000 Dragon Ruler deck or the $1,000 Spellbook deck, having like the $60 Evil Swarm deck is a good option. The deck
was shockingly affordable compared to its competitors, which led to the deck's performance being boosted, even though it was clearly the weakest of the 3. The South American WCQ would take place the same weekend, and a lot of the points we've just discussed would be present here too, with Rulers taking 15 top spots, followed by Spellbooks at 8 and Evil Swarm at 7, though notably all 7 Evil Swarm would be eliminated moving into top 16. Carlos Perez would take the event on Dragon Rulers, playing a similar build to what we saw in Europe, but notably including 2 copies of Breakthrough Skill as a way to out Ophion's lock with the 2 vanities in the side for locking out the mirror match. The Central American WCQ would be a week later, and at this stage, Dragon Rulers and Spellbooks had narrowed the field around them to a knockout-dragout war between the 2 titans, with Alejandro Suarez taking the event on Rulers, who did not make his list public. While there was one more WCQ event with coverage we can go through, there would be one more set release prior to it occurring, and though it wouldn't bring too much new to the table, it would be important to cover it for one card that would change the dynamic of Dragon Rulers heavily.
Crazy Box?
Number Hunters. Release date, July 11th, 2013. Set type, import set. Major strategies, various OCG exclusive exceeds. Impact, a couple of interesting exceeds for the pool. Number Hunters was probably one of the most out-of-nowhere sets for us to receive, right up there with Star Pack just a little bit earlier this year. In reality, this set was an import set to catch us up with some of the OCG's exclusive exceeds monsters up to this point, most of which were incredibly niche, but held their uses, such as number 49 Fortune Tune as a time win con, number 85 Crazy Box as a drain beat boss, Mech-Equipped Engineer as a stall option, Coach Gang Giant Trainer as a draw tool for rank 8 strategies, and, most importantly for our context, number 74 Master of Blades, a rank 7 that can negate and destroy a card that targets it, popping another card on field when it does. This would solve a major issue with the Dragon Ruler mirror match, that being what threat to make going first. For most matchups, going first you'd want to make Draco Sack to set up a wall protected by its tokens, but in the mirror match, this could be completely upended by the summon of an opposing Big Eye, stealing the Draco Sack and making the situation far worse. Master of Blades solves that issue, giving the deck a turn 1 option that didn't lose the Big Eye, which we'd see soon enough. The North American WCQ would be held the same weekend, and, shockingly, we'd see Dragon Ruler continue to dominate the space, taking first place piloted by Patrick Hoban.
Here is the Patrick Hoban. I am very much convinced that, yeah, emptiness, God. And then, oh, that's right. I remember the Horus cards. He put the Horus cards in to have the auto win versus the Spellbook matchup.
Notably main decking 2 copies of Vanity's Emptiness, prepping for the mirror in the main deck, as it was reasonably going to be the most common matchup. This would end the WCQ circuit for the year and lead into the next...
Didn't cover the Oceanics one. Oh. Well. Okay, so just because he didn't cover the Oceanic one, I will quickly cover it. Dragon Rulers took multiple... I think it was like... There may have been like one Evil Swarm player in top 16. If not, it was like 6 Spellbooks and then like 10 Dragon Rulers. So it was like completely nothing else there. And then what happened is the finals ended up being Spellbooks versus Dragon Rulers, Kai Baker versus Chris Matisky, and Chris Matisky had a Techine's deck called Light and Darkness Dragon, which he summoned in game 1, and Kai wasn't playing Priestess, so a Light and Darkness Dragon just won that matchup, and then it was a back and forth grind in game 2, and then Matisky was able to grind it out and take the win with Dragon Rulers. Additionally, we saw some people using Obelisk the Tormentor because people didn't have an out to a 4,000 untargetable, indestructible monster at that point in time, so that was kind of cool, but no one really cared about it that much. And I'm trying to think about the other things. We saw some Forbidden Chalice techs in the deck. We also saw some draw on Lockbirds. Chalice was mainly there because you could do a Colossal Fighter FTK, where if your opponent left Draco Sack in attack, you could go Chalice to make it 3,000, they max C you, and Colossal Fighter would just swing in multiple times, and then what would bring it would just special summon back continuously, making your opponent draw cards continuously until they deck out. So that was a cool little thing that happened. I remember I did that once in like round, I want to say like one of the later rounds, maybe 7 or 8, whatever it was. Then there was also another option where Delta Flyer was flying around as like a tech card to make so you'd go 2 Big Eye effects to force out your opponent's Veilers, then you'd go Delta Flyer with a Dragon Ruler to make Trident Dragian, popping the 2 Big Eyes so it would get extra attacks and go for an OTK game like that. So that was pretty cool.
Next core set prior to the World Championships in the month, and any hope of seeing a meta not dominated by Dragon Rulers would entirely rest on this new set.
Oh, the Bujin cards. Yeah, these weren't good. At least on release. They were really good
Judgment
later.
of the Light. Release date, August 9th, 2013. Set type, core set. Major strategies, Bujin, Trap Tricks, Fire Fist. Impact, setting up the meta half a year away. Judgment of the Light is an odd set looking back on it in retrospect. Not because it was bad, not by a long shot, but because even though a number of strategies released here would be meta, they were completely overshadowed on release due to the dragons raging in the background.
A year
the first of the
away
new
from
strategies of
something
note was Bujin, a series of Beast Warrior Bujins and Beast and Winged Beast Bujinjis, with the Bujinjis providing some benefit to a Beast Warrior Bujin on the board by either discarding themselves or banishing themselves from grave. This initial wave included Yamato, who can add a Bujin from deck to hand in the end phase, discarding a Bujin if you did, Quillin, able to be banished from grave while you control a Beast Warrior Bujin to pop a face-up card, Turtle, able to banish itself from grave to negate a card that targets a Bujin, Crane, able to discard itself to double a Beast Warrior Bujin's attack in the damage step, Susanoo, a Bujin locked rank 4 that can attack all monsters once each and can detach to either search or dump a Bujin, and Bujin Carnation, which summons a Bujin from grave and the banished zone while you control no monsters but the opponent does. Bujin was one of the strongest examples ever of a helmet deck, basically aiming to stick Yamato and throw all protection onto it, being a simple concept of get the helmet and put on the damn helmet. An incredibly basic strategy, but had bones, needing a couple more worthwhile main deck Beast Warrior Bujins to be worth it. The other new archetype here was Trap Tricks, a series of earth insects and plants that interact with the normal trap hole cards, like the classic Trap Hole and the meta staple Bottomless Trap Hole, all being immune to whole normal traps. This first wave included Mermello, who searched a whole normal trap on normal summon and pops a spell trap on special summon, Nepenthes, who searches or summons a Trap Tricks from the deck if you activate a whole normal trap, and Trap Tricks Trap Hole Nightmare, a trap that negates and destroys a special summoned monster that activates an effect to turn it summon. This archetype did hold potential out the gate thanks to Mermello searching the ever-popular Bottomless on normal summon, but would clearly need more support to do anything impactful in the metagame. Fire Fist would receive its most pivotal wave of support yet, being Rooster, an OCG import that, if special summoned by...
Oh my god, this hurts, man. It was so late. It was almost to the point where it was just too late.
Fire Fist effect searches a Fire Fist monster, able to send a fire formation to grave to set another from deck. This would be the piece that finally brought the 3-axis version of the deck together, able to search a copy of Spirit on...
But the thing is, it was supposed to be brought, like, I think it was supposed to be released in, like, Cosmo Blazer, but what happened is they didn't import it in, so it had to come in like the next core set like later down the line, which it just came out too late, really.
Provide from a copy of Spirit or an initial summon from Horse Prince. Cycle a fire formation, then either make a rank 3 or a level 6 synchro, giving the strategy the follow-up potential it needed so badly. Unfortunately, the support would be too late for the deck to do anything relevant due to the environment around it and the next fan list, which would take effect prior to the first YCS it could potentially do anything at. Moving into other cards in the set, Galaxy Serpent was a normal level 2 Dragon Tuner, useful for some Heradic and Dragon strategies for hitting certain levels in the extra deck. Mass Chameleon revives a 0 defense monster on summon, providing synchro and exceed access for specific strategies that happen to be searchable by King of the Feral Limbs, which would come up in later formats. Flying Sea was the next C hand trap, able to summon itself to the opponent's board and lock exceed summons, seeing some experimentation. Armades Keeper of Boundaries was the newest Synchro 5 staple, able to stun effects while attacking, seeing play in any deck that could make him. Star Eater was a level 11 Synchro whose summon couldn't be stopped or responded to, and became immune to card effects while attacking.
I remember this thing. This thing had a big impact.
Becoming an option for the Dragon Ruler extra deck using level 4 tuners, like the Bree Dragon. Number 66, Master Key Beetle, was a dark lock rank 4 that could attach to select a card on field, protecting that card from destruction while on the field, and able to pop a protected card to protect itself, seeing play in Evil Swarm decks thanks to his ability to become an invincible threat by hitting Safe Zone onto itself, or to permanently lock special summons by targeting Vanity's Emptiness. Herald of Pure Light is a rank 2 that can add a card engraved back to hand, then shuffle a card in hand back into deck, being a decent recursion option for rank 2 decks. Transmodify was probably one of the most interesting pieces to experiment with from this set, able to send a monster to grave to summon a monster of the same type and attributes but one level higher from deck, seeing experimentation with multiple strategies from Agents to Dark World, but finding a home in Infernity of all things due to being able to change a spent Necromancer into an Archfiend. Cockadoodle-Doo was a TCG exclusive that could be level 3, 4, or 5 based on how you summon it, being an interesting tuner for some decks to play with. Noble Knight Dristan would be the first solid target to summon with Madrot, able to pop a figure Beast Warrior, or Yugioh was an import that could provide a level 4 Fire Beast Warrior in grade, being a rank 4 enable,
but it was irrelevant until the Dragon Rulers got hit on the list.
Specifically for Fire Fist and Fire King. Fire Fist and Fencing Fire Fair, the enabler for Fire King that the deck
Yeah, no, this was relevant.
was desperately missing. Lastly, Fencing Fire Ferret can, upon being destroyed, pop a face up.
I remember this card, Fencing Fire Ferret. This was like played in the ruler deck post-ban list.
Monster and burning the opponent, being an option for countering out specific meta threats. The 2013 Yu-Gi-Oh! World Championship would be held the same weekend, and unsurprisingly, with all of the pieces of the deck available in both regions, Dragon Ruler absolutely dominated this tournament, taking 6 of the top 8, leaving only 2 spots for spellbooks. Huang Xian of Taiwan would take the event with the aforementioned Dragon Rulers.
Oh, please show the meme. Please show the card destruction meme. Wait, hold on. He's not gonna show it. Huang Xin N. I'm gonna find that thing. Huang Shen. How do I spell Shen Ing meme? Yugioh. Come on, where is it? The card destruction. Oh, they're not gonna show it, are they?
Claiming the title of World Champion for 2013, but there was one specific inclusion in his build that would be noted for all future iterations of the deck, that being Dragon Ravine, the Dragoonity field spell. Ravine had one major purpose here, help load Dragon Rulers into the graveyard, as by discarding a card once per turn, you could effectively gain a repeatable Foolish Burial for the deck, which would continue to see play long after this event. It also had the side benefit of searching for Seska if you needed a level 1 tuner. Following the world's performance of Dragon Ruler, the 2013 Collector's Tins would begin dropping, reprinting Blaster and Title in a much higher secret rarity, alongside super rare reprints of Karakuri Bore, Gagaga Cowboy, Fire Fist Bear, BLS, Cataster, and Gustav Max, with the latter being notable for releasing the card into the EU region for the first time. However, the far more culturally significant impact, in fact the arguably most significant impact of all of 2013 on the game, would take place shortly after on September 1st, being on the surface another ban list update, but this one was far different than any that came before it. Up until this point, the TCG ban list was a direct one-to-one copy of the OCG's ban list, which, notably, meant that we were receiving hits months in advance of the releases they were actually put in place for. Starting with this ban list, the TCG and OCG would officially split from each other, with the TCG now updating their ban list completely separately from the OCG, commonly referred to as the TCG-OCG split in the player base. Ironically, this would also be the largest ban list in the history of the game so far, seeing 15 bans, 18 limits, 5 semi-limits, and 9 unlimits, for a total of 47 changes in all. So let's dive in. Newly banned were the 4 Baby Rulers and Super Rejuvenation, directly targeted at kneecapping Dragon Rulers, Elemental Hero Stratos, aimed at the various hero beat decks, number 16 Shockmaster, the final nail in the coffin for wind-up, Card Destruction, the Power Play card of Dark Worlds, Gateway of the Six, putting an end to 6 Samurai's pop-up nature, Heavy Storm, Monster Reborn, Pot of Avarice, and Solemn Judgment, hits to the meta staples, Spellbook of Judgment, killing the modern iteration of spellbooks outright, and Ultimate Offering, a spam summon card that hadn't caused many issues yet, but was clearly a ticking time bomb. Newly limited were Atlantean Dragoons and Deep Sea Diva as hit the Merlantian, Fire Fist Spirit as a hit to 3-axis, Constellar Ptolemy M7 and Evagishki Mind August hits to a Gishki loop, Duloran to prevent more loops, Genex Ally Birdman as a staple tuner, Rescue Rabbit, the cornerstone of various rank 4 strategies, Thunder King Ryo, Dimensional Fissure, Royal Tribute, Eradicator Epidemic Virus, Macrocosmos, and Soul Drain all as hits to stun decks, Gold Sarcophagus as a hit to Dragon Rulers, and Bottomless, Compulse, and Torrential as hits to the staple trap line. Newly semi-limited were Tenki, a hit to Beast Warrior decks, Dimensional Prison, a hit to the staple trap, and Mizuki, Plague Spreader, and TG Striker all coming back from 1. Lastly, unlimited were Destiny Hero Malicious, the Agent of Mystery Earth, Tsukiyomi, A Hero Lives, Black Whirlwind, E-Emergency Call, Erratic Seal of Convocation, Pot of Duality, and Scapegoat, being a wave of cleanup. Needless to say, something was bound to change here, but on reveal, even though a lot was hit, there were glaring omissions. Even though the rulers lost the babies, Rejuve, and 2 of their gold sarks, the deck remained shockingly competent, with all 4 rulers still legal at 3 copies each. And now that spellbooks were out of the way, there was no deck to really stand up against them. YCS Brussels would be held the same day as this list, though notably wouldn't be affected by it due to being a sealed pack YCS, using the new War of the Giants draft pack. These YCSs are always the more interesting to cover thanks to dispelling the rumor that drafting is all luck when in reality it is heavily built on the back of deck building skill, which we'd see thanks to the finals being between some of EU's most consistent faces at the time, being Peter Gross and Michael Gruner, with Gruner taking the event in a 2-1 finals match, claiming the YCS title and the first copy of the newest YCS prize card, number 106 Giant Hand. This particular prize card reveal was a little controversial, as in recent years the prize card has been decent, but not something you'd really want to play in a meta deck, as compared to the SJC days where prize cards were extremely meta relevant and caused many issues in pricing. This time though, Giant Hand, while not the strongest rank 4 out there, did fill a niche in the rank pool by providing monster effect negation, leading it to actually see play during its prize card stint run,
like
much to the horror of budget players. YCS Toronto would be held the same day, and this event would paint a much more clear picture of the meta fallout, with there being no real top deck following the hits, seeing a new variant of Dragon Rulers, that being Dragon Ruler plants, rise into the top meta position, though not in a convincing manner. The deck had pivoted to focus more on the synchro pool axis that had been experimented with prior, adding in more tuners than just the odd level 1s this time, like Dragon, in addition to the level modulating tuners like Spore, giving you access to the level 11 pool for Star Eater. Spellbooks would pivot back to their own boss monsters for an endgame, such as High Priestess and World, giving the deck a far different feel than it had pre-ban list. Dragoonity Ruler would be the other interesting development here, leaning hard into the recently discovered Dragon Ravine to not only fuel the rulers, but also to access the level 8 synchro pool easily through Ducks and Phalanx, making it to top 4 here. Edward Kwong would take the event on a more pure variant of Dragon Rulers, though notably still playing Dandelion from the plant package, just not the rest of it, also leaning into the Dragon Ravine discovery himself. Though the top deck here feels a lot more diverse than it was before, in reality 7 of the top 16 were just different flavors of ruler, showing that despite the hits, nothing had really changed about them being the best deck, with the only question being which.
This is very similar to like modern format right now, where we've got like 3 different fire decks that are all competing for top spot, but essentially they're all the same fire deck, just playing a different few cards.
Variant to play. And another variant was about to throw their hat into the ring with the next structure deck releasing 2 weeks later.
Blue Eyes Rulers.
Saga of Blue Eyes White Dragon. Release date, September 13th, 2013. Set type, Structure Deck. Major strategies, Blue Eyes. Impact, another variant on the pile. Saga of Blue Eyes was an interestingly timed structure deck, releasing a wave of new support for Blue Eyes and general dragon support right at a time when dragons were more popular than ever. For Blue Eyes specifically, they received Maiden with Eyes of Blue, a tuner that, if attacked, summoned a Blue Eyes White Dragon from hand, deck, or grave, negates the attack, and swaps her battle position. And if targeted, summons a Blue Eyes as well, being a casual player's worst nightmare, requiring non-targeted, non-battle removal, or the ability to deal with both her and the dragon she summons. They also received Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, a level 9 synchro requiring a normal monster.
This was a really cool card. Obviously, it wouldn't be really good until they get the next Blue Eyes Synchro monster that would actually be really good for like 2014 format. But this deck was really cool.
Non-tuner that gives dragons you control card effect targeting and destruction prevention on summon, and can revive a normal. Outside of Blue Eyes' specific support, the deck also brought Silver's Cry, a revival spell for dragon normal monsters, and Dragon Shrine, a foolish burial for dragons that can do 2 dragons if the first one was a normal monster. Cool. Silver's Cry would fall into an extremely niche.
Dragon Shrine. Again, it's so crazy how old this card is, and yet it's still relevant in modern format. Like, it was relevant with, like, Pendulum sending Darkworm to the grave to revive it. It was relevant for, like, what was, like, some of the dragon decks where they would send a normal monster to grave and then be able to, like, it's like another foolish burial. It's so crazy, this card.
Position on release. But Dragon Shrine would monster usually trade in, Cards of Continents, 1-for-1, Monster Reborn, which had just been banned, Fiendish Chain, and Compulse, being a decent wave of staple reprints and useful tools. Following 2 weeks later would be another first of its kind set, being the Judgment of the Light Deluxe Edition, which is effectively an upgraded version of the previous special editions, but notably held printings of 2 cards that would be coming in the next core set, being Dragon Shield and Vampire Kingdom, though neither of these cards would be useful. YCS San Mateo would be held a week after that on October 6th, and clearly Dragon Ruler had once again fully taken over, seeing 12 total top spots between its pure and Dragoonity variants, taking first place piloted by Merlin Schumacher on a more pure variant. The Ravine inclusion was no longer its pure and Dragoonity variant.
Say Merlin Schumacher? Oh, I actually know him. Or at least I think I know him. And if this is maybe it's like someone who's got a very similar name, but if this is him, he looks so different today. Yeah, this looks just
piloted by Merlin Schumacher on a more pure variant. The Ravine inclusion was no longer a deck. It was now a staple in every version of the deck, marking what would become known as Ravine Ruler format for the remainder of the year. But that distinction was about to get worse. We had another Legendary Collection release coming in the next week, and though it appeared to be unassuming, it was about to bring something down on the format that would cause the next 2 months of the game for some to become absolutely unbearable.
Oh boy.
Legendary Collection 4, Joey's World. Release date, October 11th, 2013. Set type, reprint set. Major strategies, anything touched by Joey in the original anime. Impact, one import that should have stayed out. Legendary Collection Joey's World is an odd release in retrospect, much like a lot of this year.
So, yeah, this set, that's right, I remember now. This set was like a bunch of, like, garbage, like hot garbage that was like unsellable crap, and that they couldn't move it at all. And so like so thinking about this is all a speculative theory, right? That they needed an OCG import card in the slot, and they're like, well, what can we use to sell? Like imported sixth sets, which is like the most absurd broken trap in all of Yu-Gi-Oh. In fact, I'm pretty sure this card can never come back because like you just call 5 or 6 with this card, and then what happens is you're either drawing 5 or 6 cards or milling like the rest. In fact, some people like, would just like call 3-4, so where you could mill 5 or 6 cards, but you'd either mill 1, 2, 5 or 6, or you draw 3 or 4. It's insane. Like, this card should never have been printed
in the game, bringing reprints of a bunch of older DMR
in fact, I think it even got E-banned,
just like Yugi's
so ridiculous.
But also importing a single OCG card far after its ban in the OCG, which we'll talk about shortly. First of all, the reprints: Jinzo, Fiberjar, Red Eyes Wyvern, Red MD, Raigeki, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed, Giant True Name, Premature Burial, Scapegoat, Foolish Burial, Bottomless, Feather Duster, Lava Golem, Book of Moon, Pot banned in the current form. Sense. A trap. Joey's World also released a card that's been banned for years now that was finally imported from the OCG,
only card that matters.
being Sixth Sense. A trap that lets you call 2 results on a die, roll it, and if the number you called, you draw that many cards, otherwise milling the results. This card had been banned in the OCG since March of 2005, and when it was printed here, we all expected that would hold. However, Konami apparently had a different idea. On October 11th, the same day as Joey's World's release, Sixth Sense was put to limited on the TCG ban list, meaning that, at least until the next ban list, the card was legal to use in the TCG. And I'm sure that won't cause any kind of issues having a draw 5 or 6 or mill 1 to 4 in a format dominated by a deck that loves to play out of the graveyard. Just 2 weeks after this, Weekly Shonen Jump Alpha would finally release a promo worth talking about this year, being Vulcan the Divine, a level 6 synchro that bounces a card you control and a card the opponent controls on synchro summon, locking you from using that bounce card for the rest of the turn, being a clause clearly placed on it to prevent loops. This would be a solid inclusion to the level 6 synchro pool moving forward, not quite becoming staple, but remaining a solid option to include. YCS London would be held 3 days after that on October 27th, and wow, would you look at that! Dragon Rulers had fully gone into overdrive with Sixth Sense becoming legal, completely dominating the event and taking first place piloted by Patrick Ryder, with almost every publicly available list playing the new trap tool. On a much less important note, following that performance was the 5Ds manga Volume 5 release, which brought a new take on a classic synchro, being Stardust Spark Dragon, a level 8 that can make a monster unable to be destroyed once in a turn on a quick effect, being arguably weaker than the original Stardust but covering a more general spread of circumstances. This would lead us into the last set release of the year, and any hope for Dragon Ruler's reign ending anytime soon would have to rest on its shoulders.
Good luck. It's just made this changed them to like
Shadow Specters.
Like
release date November 7th, 2013. Set type core set. Major strategies: Ghost Trick, Bujin, Noble Knight. Impact: nothing until the beast is dropped. Shadow Specters was the final set release of 2013, and if it wanted to change anything, it really had the wrong card pool to do it, as this particular release would do nothing to the meta overall, merely setting up archetypes for their next waves. Starting with the headliner of the set, Ghost Trick was a series of fiends, spellcasters, and zombies focused on disruption and flipping cards face down. This attack, Ghost Trick on field, may flip any number of your monsters up, then flip monsters the opponent controls near strong enough barrier in Mikazuchi, able to summon itself from hand if a Beast Warrior Bujin is destroyed.
So Mikazuchi actually had an impact, just it took way longer to have an impact because you needed to wait for the rulers to die out before Bujin became relevant.
Able to walk rank 4 that can
just
the inclusion of a second main deck Beast Warrior Bujin would increase the power of the deck's converts and boars.
They did so much nothing. Like, they did nothing.
While the other releases here, Labradorite Dragon was another level 6 normal dragon.
So this was relevant for the like hieratic rulers.
Mythic Tree and Water Dragons were a duo.
So these are the 2 cards here that actually had an impact in the game with Felgrand, because they could actually be special summoned, and then you could like now go into rank 8 combos with the rulers. It's insane.
Clearly intended to work with each other, with Water summoning itself if you control an Earth monster, and Tree able to copy the level of a Water Dragon you control to itself, giving access to a rank 8 by themselves. These would be experimented with in Dragon Rulers, as they could access the rank 8 pool, but also Tree could copy the level of a title onto itself for an additional rank 7 access point. The Baby Raccoon cards would also be released here, being Ponpoko, able to summon a level 2 beast from deck face down on normal summon, Tantan, who summons a level 2 beast from deck on flip, and number 64, Ronin.
Baby Raccoon Tantan? Farfa, what did you do?
Raccoon Sendayu, a beast locked rank 2 that can detach to summon a Kagemusha Raccoon token that matches the attack of the strongest monster on the field on summon. Felgrand was a rank 8 that can detach on quick effect to make a monster unaffected by other effects that turn, negating its own effects, being a powerful rank 8 option for the pool. Mistake was a continuous trap that locked adding cards from deck to hand out.
This is the set that brought Mistake. Yeah, Mistake is like Droll in a trap room. This is such a good card.
Being a solid side deck floodgate for certain matchups. Grisaille Prison, if you control the fusion, ritual, or tribute summoned monster, blocks players from synchro and exceed summoning until the end of the opponent's next turn, being an extremely powerful floodgate option for certain strategies. Lastly, White Dragon Wyver Burster, and Black Dragon Collapser
Oh, the
were
baby
OCG imports
rulers.
that can summon
Forgot
themselves
about
by
those.
banishing the other attribute from grave, searching the other when sent to grave.
They get
These are
better,
options
but
for
not at
chaos
this
strategies,
time.
not seeing play now, but would be heavily considered in the future. 2 weeks later would be the second wave of the yearly collectible tins, bringing secret rare versions of Tempest and Redox to finish out the series, alongside super rare reprints of Thunder Seahorse, Gear Kick and Tex, number 50 Black Ship of Corn, Diamond Direwolf, and Spellbook of the Master, reprinting some of the more valuable secret rares in the format
So
in a
many
much
good
easier to
cards
access
just
rarity
went
and location. YCS Turin would follow a
unplayable
week
because of
after this on
Dragon
December
Rulers.
1st, being the final YCS of the year, and once again, Dragon Ruler would dominate thanks to the combination of Ravine and Sixth Sense, though shockingly would not take the event overall this time. That honor would go to Samuel Padigo on Karakuri Geargia, utilizing
Wait,
similar
what?
strategies to before, but now having added in the Geargiano monsters with Geargia gear
That's
to flood the board and
interesting.
access their rank 4s rapidly.
surprised
Also
that Dragon
utilizing a
Rules
single
didn't
copy
take
of
that.
Redox as an extra body and a monster reborn of sorts. As for other developments here, Influence Dragon would begin to appear in some Dragon Ruler lists, being a level 3 tuner allowing
Once per turn, you can target one face up monster you control. It becomes dragon. Influence dragon as a 3. So now you'd have a 4, a 1, and a 3. Yeah, interesting.
access to Trident Dragion for sudden OTK pushes. Bujin would see a top here, sporting Kaiser Coliseum to even the playing field a bit, able to comfortably sit on just Yamato for turns on end thanks to locking swarming from the opponent.
Yeah,
Mythic Wood
that
and
would
Water
be
Dragon
about
would
it.
make the occasional appearance here and list to access the rank 8 pool for Dragon Rulers, specifically for Heliopolis, Giant Grinder, and the newly released Felgrand. And with that, 2013 and Yu-Gi-Oh! Would come to an end, seeing a bit of a shocking outcome for those who view these formats as Tier 0, as a very interesting result has come to my attention while researching this period. I've long stood as someone who said that the original Dragon Ruler format was not a Tier 0 format.
It wasn't.
And looking back on the results now, that is true. Prior to any hits, Dragon Ruler only took 31% of the representation in full, 52.5% when adjusted with the unknown.
Yeah, so what I would say is I would largely agree with that sentiment there, that Dragon Rulers was not tier 1 pre-hits because Spellbook existed at the same time. So I would actually look at the format in another way, where you had two tier 0 decks that coexisted, which prevented each other from becoming tier 0 decks, if that makes much sense. Whereas if you didn't have one of them if you had only one and not both, they would both have been tier 0 decks for their time. However, after that, Spellbooks being essentially deleted from the format, Dragon Rulers were tier 0.
List removed, which is far below the standard 65% threshold most Tier 0 formats are qualified by. However, a very interesting result occurs when you analyze the result of Dragon Ruler's post Sixth Sense release. Of the top 64 spots available in the YCS's following Sixth Sense's release, Dragon Ruler variants took a shocking 65.6% of the representation, 76.4% if you adjust for the unknown lists, which is above the threshold regardless of how you look at it.
Ridiculous.
So interestingly enough, Dragon Ruler did have a Tier 0 format, just not the one everyone claims is the Tier 0 format, which would be quelled going into 2014, but that's a story for another day.
Man, that was a good video.
A huge shout out to my Dark Law level patrons, Dammit Marka, Jukes, McJaga, Otaku Gamerak channel. That way you don't miss out on any future videos. Every subscription helps out more than you think.
I like the lore Yugioh. And this was a great video. Okay,